Mafia Definitive Edition is a Mafia game where you play as a low-ranking member of a Mafia family. As you progress through the game, you'll start to earn the trust of your superiors by completing tasks for them, which will lead to you being assigned with more important jobs. This is great for the player character because it means he has direct access to more powerful weapons and vehicles. But that's not so great for the NPCs around you, because when they get in your way, you can now mow them down with ease. Now, if you're playing on a lower difficulty setting, then you may find this game to be pretty easy. However, this is far from the truth or the hardest difficulty setting called the really hard setting. Now, even though you do have access to some really powerful weapons, they are extremely hard to use effectively in this mode because of how the game balances the enemy's strength and also the lack of AI improvements in vehicles. The game also increases the damage that your character takes and reduces your accuracy, so you can expect to die a lot while playing on this mode. And if you're trying to make your way through the story missions, then you should probably prepare yourself for a lot of frustration as well. What makes playing on the really hard difficulty setting quite challenging is that there are several missions in the game that require you to drive certain types of vehicles, and this includes motorcycles, trucks, and other heavy vehicles. And if you want to learn why these vehicles are so frustrating to control, then you just need to try to drive a truck or a bus down a narrow road while enemy cars are trying to ram you off the road. It doesn't help that most of these driving missions take place in very close quarters as well. Another reason why you should never trust anyone is because of how the game handles enemy territory. Now, if you happen to enter an area that's controlled by another crime family, then you will become an enemy target. What makes this even worse is that you won't get any warning signs telling you that you've entered hostile territory. You'll just suddenly get attacked out of nowhere. To make matters worse, you don't even know what you're up against. It could be one guy or an entire army. There's no tell. The worst part about it is that the hit detection in this game is really wanky at times, so you might find yourself taking damage without knowing why. There are also a lot of areas that you cannot drive your car into because the entrances are blocked off by invisible walls. So you have to park your car on the streets and then proceed on foot. If you're carrying a large amount of cash or other valuable items, then it's a good idea to move to a safe house that's closer to the mission location. Otherwise, you run the risk of getting robbed by random encounters. And even if you do decide to do that, you still run the risk of getting robbed because these encounters you want only occur outside, but inside as well. If you're planning on using a sniper rifle for stealth kills, then you should never trust anyone because some civilians actually have guns on them. So if you kill them with a gunshot, then their body will automatically be put into a state of combat. Not only that, but the police will automatically become alerted as well. I guess they had to balance the game somehow. And speaking of civilians, you should never trust them either, because some of them can be if you decide to kill an informant, then you will not receive any criminal stars. Also, if you accidentally kill a civilian who happens to be an informant, then it will not affect your criminal heat level either. And to prevent any confusion, an informant will always have a green icon above their head. So if you see this while you're playing the game, then it's safe to assume that this person has something to do with the police force. It is also important to note that there are rare cases where enemies will simply drop their weapon and then surrender. These moments are pretty uncommon though, so don't get your hopes up for that happening often. On the bright side, if you ever do encounter a friendly face, then you can choose to either kill him or spare his life. If you do decide to let him live, then you can actually recruit him as a potential ally. He'll join you in combat and do some serious damage with a shotgun. Plus, it's always nice having someone to watch your back, especially since this game does feature friendly fire. So if you're running and gunning with multiple allies, then you don't have to worry about accidentally shooting each other. The only problem with using recruits is that they are exactly the brightest when it comes to taking cover. Sometimes they'll stand right next to you in the open, which puts them at risk of being killed. They're also not that great at aiming, so don't expect them to be much help in firefights. At least they do have the decency to carry their own weapons and ammo, so that's something. If you want to make things easier for yourself, then you should consider starting a new game with the Honest Hearts mode enabled. This mode changes the overall tone of the game and makes it so that the police don't interfere in gang-related activities. The game also gives you a unique set of weapons that you can only find in this mode, like the Tommy gun. This also applies to vehicles, which means that you won't have to worry about police cars chasing you during the driving missions. But that's not to say that you won't get into trouble, because if you commit too many crimes in this mode, then the rival families will come after you. In order to survive in this mode, you must use any means necessary to defend yourself. Just make sure that you stash all your money in a safe house before going to war, because the police will actually steal it if you die. In general, I would recommend playing this mode unless you're redoing a challenge run. Because if you enable this mode from the start, then you're missing out on some really good cuts. At the end of the day, you should never trust anyone in Mafia Definitive Edition, because even the main characters will turn on you in a heartbeat. Don't believe me? Well, just look at Luca. He starts off as your close friend and confidant. But as soon as you become a made man, he becomes bitter over not being promoted. It doesn't help that he's voiced by Joe Massino, who is also the real-life capo regime of the Bonanno crime family. You should also never trust anyone, because the game itself will try to trick you. A good example of this is the mission called An Eye for an Eye. For most of the game, you will think that the targets that you were supposed to kill are the men who were responsible for killing your father. However, it turns out that they were actually innocent. To make matters worse, the actual people who were responsible for your father's death are sitting right next to you the entire time. This might be a mafia game, but there are still some honorable people in this world. One good example of this is the old man who you meet in the sewers. He's hiding down there to escape the violence on the streets, and he's willing to give up his hidden treasure if you agree to protect him. Luckily, this game features a couple of mini-games, and one of them involves you playing cards against the old man. And if you win, then you'll get to keep his treasure, which is worth a lot of money. So do me a favor and give this video a thumbs up if I was able to successfully trick you, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you next time.